Well, thank you very much for inviting me to Showlight. It's a great honour to be here, and I hope we get a chance to all meet in person at the next one. So I'm here to talk to you about the Disco Lighthouse, which was an amazing project that the agency I started 8 years ago completed in 2019. How did this project come about? Well, let's go back to the origins of this project. I am a creative director. I've directed shows like the opening ceremony for the Champions League final, Wembley Stadium, Manchester United versus Barcelona, 90,000 screaming fans. I've done hologram shows for the likes of BMW and car launches for Lexus. So a large light art installation in the middle of the Bahamas is not necessarily where you'd imagine my kind of work pattern, workflow would take me. But how did we get there? Well, the origins of that really starts from my desire and interest in so much of the creative world that London has to offer. And one of the things that happens every September is the London Design Festival. And across London, different design practices and showcases take place. And so I'd asked one of the creative team to just run through what they thought was the most interesting projects and showcases that were happening. And so we sat down and we went through it. And I saw that a company called Verity Studios were doing a showcase of their latest product. And for those people that don't know, Verity is just amazing. It's founded by one of these kind of drone robotic geniuses. Based in Switzerland. He's done a TED talk that's been viewed by 20 million times. And what was so unique about his TED talk was that he was able to design a system where he created a mesh indoors that allowed him and his team to program the space in a three-dimensional capacity, and then to program the way swarm drones would move around that space. And I'd seen that online and I was very interested to see what the next project might be. So I ended up signing up to their showcase, and actually what they were doing was they teamed up with a designer and she was making drone costumes. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but actually if you see it, you'll understand why it was an incredible project. But basically what she was doing was using UV materials to design costumes inspired by creatures from the underwater environment, the underwater worlds. It was amazing. So these little drones would fly up into the air. You would see the sparkling kind of LED elements that she'd put in there. The UV light would interplay. And it was literally like you were 10,000 fathoms at the bottom of the ocean. So in the process of going to see that showcase, being a businessman and being, ever inquisitive, I was looking around the room and I spotted the Verity people seemed very keen to chat with one particular individual. I don't know if I should name him, but his name is Andy Burden, and he deserves great credit and great thanks from me and my company. But I saw that they was paying a lot of attention to this guy, and so I sidled up to him and I gave him my business card, and we got chatting a little bit. And he was someone that understood and loved immersive experiences, something that's passionate to my heart. So we agreed to meet up. I'm a member of a private members club, it's a cool place. He's worked for MSC, which was at the time the second biggest cruise ship company. And I felt that the cruise ship industry had a reputation that could do with some energy and refreshment and immersive experiences, the kind of things that we're proud of doing, might sit well within the world of cruise ships. So we met, we sat down and we spent 3 hours just chatting about the projects that we'd done. He'd been part of the team that had worked on launching Disneyland in Japan. He'd worked at Universal Studios. He was a real theme parks guy, real technical director, and understood his tech incredibly well. And I was a kind of creative. I was not so kind of turned on by the technology. What excites me is kind of the ideas and things that you can play around with and where that might take you. So he said, look, there is one project that maybe you could you could come and meet the guys at MSC in our office in Uxbridge. There's an island in the Bahamas, and they're planning something big there. So we went, and we went to MSC's head office, and we got to learn that there was a lighthouse that had been built by a French company, and it had been built specifically with a metal perforated structure. And the idea of that was to make it lightweight, to cut down on materials, look absolutely dynamic and fabulous. But what they were also thinking of doing was projection mapping on the lighthouse. And for me, I immediately felt that there were some red flags with that. Because one, there was loads of holes. Two, I've worked with projectors all my life. The idea of kind of trying to put projectors around a lighthouse when, 880 degrees of it is the ocean. When you do project on it, it's going to be projecting through holes. The projectors don't work very well in as the sun's setting, as there's still light in the sky. And so to me, it seemed like there was a whole load of problems with that as the executional idea as to how they would go about bringing this lighthouse to life as a kind of key item on this private island. So I went away and we gave it some thought. And really what the breakthrough for us was to really think about it from an R&D and a manufacturing perspective. So rather than projectors, actually thinking about the little perforated metal holes that make up the exoskeletal area of the lighthouse was the breakthrough. And we realized that we could custom build LED nodes that we could clip into that lighthouse. And therefore we could turn the skin into a 20,000 individual LED pixels that were going to be much, much more bright during the evening. So the process for us then coincided with Integrated Systems Europe, which was a big event that was taking place in Amsterdam. So me and a couple of my team, we went over to Integrated Systems Europe, and we went and met with loads of different lighting manufacturers, people that had experience in bright lights, dealing with the kind of harsh environmental conditions that you would see in the Bahamas. And eventually we met a company based in the Netherlands called Invent Design, and they really understood what it was we were trying to do. So now we had the beginnings of a technical and practical solution to how the lighthouse was going to become the disco lighthouse. We were going to work with Invent Design on R&Ding, first in CAD design, a LED node that could clip into the lighthouse perforated holes and that could be strung together in long strings of LED, and that we could get manufactured on a scale and in a budget that mean we could totally cover this lighthouse with 20,000 individual LEDs. So we had a plan. So that was the first kind of phase of the project. We then went back to MSC and we said, guys, we think we've got the perfect solution. It's custom built LED that clips into the thing, but we're going to need a little piece of your lighthouse. So they went to the island, they got us a piece of the lighthouse, they got it shipped back to us here in the UK. We sent it to Amsterdam. Amsterdam guys started playing around with it, and we realized we were onto something. So then we moved on to the creative challenge. We've got a lighthouse. We've figured out how we're going to fit our 20,000 LEDs. But what's the story we're going to tell? That's really important. And it's incredibly important to the people that were involved in MSC Ocean Cay. Why? Well, it's a very special place. My understanding, and this is rumour and hearsay, was the first part of it is clear and well understood. Sand is a great commodity. It's needed the world over, from kind of industrial style sand that's needed for cement. And there's a big ecological problem with that, to kind of sand that's needed for beautiful beaches and kind of leisure facilities. And this island was essentially a sand reservoir. And so it was used as a place where they would come in with big dredgers and they would dig up the sand and then take it to the places it was needed. And so what they'd done is they dug a huge channel right the way close to the island, something that would never be allowed now by the government in the Bahamas. But it did mean that this particular island could get a cruise ship to come right up to it. And so MSC were looking for a way to provide a really unique environment that their guests coming from Miami could go and play and experience the Caribbean in all its beauty. And so they did a deal with the Bahamas government. They ended up acquiring a lease for this island for a certain amount of period, and then the hard work started. They really needed to transform it from an industrial landscape into something that was truly inspiring and beautiful. They spent millions on trees, on resculpting the environment, looking after a turtle colony that they discovered there. So they really transformed this island from an industrial, sand producing, environmentally impacting place to something that is now incredibly beautiful. And it is actually a marine reserve. So while there is a cruise liner that comes and parks and 5,000 people a day can step onto this beautiful island, there is also this incredible marine reserve, all the trees, the flora and fauna that they've put onto the island. So our job as a creative agency is to think about what's the story we can tell on these LEDs. And we had two stories that we were really interested in telling. One was the story of the ocean. The crystal blue ocean surrounds you when you're on that island, and we all know what the ocean can be. It can be this amazing kind of swim blue, but it can also be a raging giant. And so we wanted to capture a little bit of that hurricane drama of the oceans crashing and the waves swirling. And we also wanted to tell the story above the water, and that was the story of the flora, the fauna, the birds, the bees and the butterflies that make up the biosphere of the marine reserve, and particularly the animals that are so integral to the ecology of the Bahamas. And so now we had two stories, and as you can see in the workings of our creative deck, how we take individual elements from each of those stories to mold these two different adventures that we're going to take the audience on, because this is a huge canvas that we can paint a picture on. It's not your usual canvas, it's not your portrait or your landscape, it's a unique shape. So we need to think really carefully about how we're going to deal with shoals of fish moving around, with plants and palm trees appearing. So those was the kind of first aspect of the creative. And the second aspect, of course, is we need to complement this with lighting design. And I am, there are so many incredible lighting designers that I've been blessed to work with, but John Coleman was the lighting designer on this particular project, and I'm so glad he was. I'm a big fan of the guys of Woodruff Bassett. They do the lighting design for the Rolling Stones, most famously. I think they've done that for many years. Patrick Woodruff is the guy there. So we partnered with them and we said, look, we've got these two shows, one about the sea and the ocean and the animals and the fish and the mammals that are in the ocean, and then we've got this second show which is about the flora, the fauna, the beach, the birds, the butterflies. We want you to create two different lighting designs with quite a tight limited budget. And we want you to design how we should position, clearly, around the base of the lighthouse, but then also dotted through the entire structure of the lighthouse is the ability for us to complement the show with these additional lighting elements. So there was, good bit of back and forth. And of course, this is not a kind of an art project. This is not a project where we get paid a fee and we can just go off and do whatever it is we want. We need to take the client with us on the journey. And there are tools that you can do that with. So, for example, we do kind of mood films to begin with, where we cut together just 2D, a little video of these are the themes and the ideas that we're going to produce in our content execution. And then we can move into more technical aspects. So one of the key things for the client, MSC, would be around wanting to understand what the experience is going to be like for the guest. And the guest could experience the lighthouse in multiple different ways. They could be where the cruise ship has come right in and parked itself next to the jetty, or they could be in the communal shopping area, or they could be down on the beach by the lighthouse. And one of the tools that we used was What You See Is What You Get, WYSIWYG, because we can then take the technical CAD drawings that the lighthouse designers had done, we can put that into a physical environment that absolutely matches the real life world of Ocean Cay, the island. And now we can track the camera and we can give the client a really good idea of what these two shows will look like on the lighthouse. Sometimes with these kind of situations, you might be in a situation where you feel like, you know, you overpromise in your renders and your pre-visualizations. But I'm really happy to say that in the case of this project, the real world example far exceeds the pre-visualization. So now we have gone through a series of technical challenges. How are we going to do this if we're not projection mapping? How are we going to turn it into a disco lighthouse? How are we going to tell stories? Well, Integrated Systems Europe, find the right partner, Invent Design out of the Netherlands, find the right manufacturer that once we've built our R&D, laser printed prototype, get it to a manufacturer in Shenzhen, China, and then get that 20,000 LEDs shipped to the Bahamas in Ocean Cay. Thankfully, our partner on the project, as well as being a cruise ship and entertainment company, they were also a shipping company, so they were a great help in getting that there. Then we've got to actually fly to the lighthouse, and it was a big team. We were joined by Invent Design, so we had the LED designers. We didn't need the manufacturers. We were confident with our prototypes that the final product would be good enough. They'd sent us samples along the way. We had a rigging team, because of course this is a rigging challenge as well. Any final words?
No. I love you, Coco. I love you, Alan.
The shots that you might see of me are all just me having a giggle. I'm not a trained rigger. I don't know what I'm doing. They just lowered me down the side of the lighthouse. But the guys were amazing. You know, they were up there for 5 days, systematically going through, punching in these little light nodes into the side of the lighthouse, cable tying all the wires at the back. And then in terms of the lighting supply, we were very lucky to work with White Light. Stuart Crane over there is a good friend of mine. I know him from my days working at the Old Vic Theatre. So it was a great pleasure to partner with those guys. And they sent the technical team out, I think it was 3 or 4 of them, that would help with installing the lights around the base and the lights around the top and throughout the lighthouse. And then, of course, my team and the content team working with the servers to put it in. So it's funny. You might think it's like the dream job. Go and spend 10 days on an island in the Bahamas installing a light project. But there was a ban on swimming. You had to wear PPE, so you've got boots, you've got trousers, you've got a hard hat on most of the time. So it was one of those jobs that I was incredibly excited about going on, and then when I got there, it was absolutely backbreaking. Everyone just kind of lugging stuff through the sand because the roads weren't built properly, getting it to the base of the lighthouse. And then, of course, when we got there, the room that was meant to be climate controlled, that would house all of our servers and all of our technical equipment, didn't have the aircon it needed. So it was honestly one of the most challenging delivery project environments that I've ever been in. It was incredibly beautiful. And don't get me wrong, I would love to go back there once the island is complete. But yeah, it's going to be a little while before that probably happens. So the team worked incredibly hard. I think it was somewhere between 10 and 12 days of working in the environment, installing the LED, making sure the lights, the servers worked, everything was speaking to each other. And then finally the big bosses at MSC came over from Miami to see, and we turned the lighthouse on, and the thing just sparkled. And you know, it was truly one of those projects that just was absolutely amazing, and I'm very lucky to have been a part of it. So I think what I'll play now is, hopefully throughout the course of this you will have seen the slides and the presentations and visualizations of what we were doing in the process. Now there's just a little video which is like a behind the scenes, a wrap up of the entire project. So I'm going to play that for you now, and then we'll jump to some questions, some Q&A. Hopefully you guys don't bombard me with too many technical questions, because I'm not the technician. I'm the creative. But anything that I can't answer in the Q&A, I will go away and do my homework and get answers to you. So look, here's a little wrap up video. Have a watch of that.
Ocean Cay was originally an industrial island just a short cruise away from Miami, but it always had the potential to be much, much more. The centrepiece of MSC's tropical renovation was a brand new island lighthouse. MSC tasked the department with creating a permanent light art show on the lighthouse to display and celebrate the island and its transformation into a marine reserve for up to 5,000 guests daily. The department came up with a solution to use LED within the lighthouse structure so that it could withstand the island challenges, combating high winds, hurricanes, and the salty sea air. With that in mind, the department custom built and purpose manufactured 20,000 LED pixels that were retrofitted into the lighthouse structure, one pixel at a time. Our animation team then came up with two fantastic shows. Each show needed to ensure superb viewing opportunities from all across the bay, as well as a clear design fit for its purpose. Down in the server room, our teams worked hard on programming the animation. Each of the 20,000 pixels needed mapping individually to receive the data. And the result? Well, they were amazing.
Go for it! Go for it!
A combination of engineering and creativity came together to create something truly magnificent.
Well, hopefully that little video gave you a good example of what an amazing project this was to work on. I want to thank all the team that were incredibly amazing, from Invent, the Dandelion and Burdock, White Light. There were so many people involved in this project. Big thanks goes out to all of them. So now I think we're going to hand over to the chairman of Showlight for a few thoughts before we go into a Q&A. So thank you very much.